My coffee order came. I'm very excited to try this. This is their Winter Bliss blend. It smells really good. I already opened it just to smell it. Also, my order came with this lovely note. These beans were fresh roasted on December 2nd. How awesome is that? Small businesses are fantastic. I love this project so much. It's so soothing.
Oh, what do we call that? Oh, hi. I was just fixing the legs of the tripod. Hi. What's going on here? Is this the Murphy show? Yeah. Is this Murphy's podcast? Where Murphy's going to answer all the questions from his Instagram followers? I think so. Murphy, what's your favorite kind of cat food? Alright, so a few days ago, I put out a call on Instagram for any questions. Let me adjust this. There. For any questions that you would like me to answer, because I knew that my next few days would involve a lot of dyeing of yarn, which is not particularly conducive to vlogmas. There goes Mark. So I thought I would record a segment to share with you guys. So I have last year's skein of Advent sock yarn from the Cozy Knitter. So I'm going to see how it goes to knit on that while I chat with you. If it gets too distracting or if I find myself looking down too much, then I will put it away. But it feels good to do a little bit of knitting because it's been very, very busy the last couple days. And last night I stopped work at about 8:30 in the evening, and my plan was to work on my crochet blanket for a little while, but I didn't. I just sat on the couch staring into space and then went to bed. Speaking of yesterday's video, actually, I got so many kind responses. Hi, Murph. And I really appreciate it, and yeah, just a big thank you. Oh no, the camera light is blinking. I might have to finish this video on my phone, which would be difficult because the questions are on my phone. Yikes. Alright, let's see what we can do. I will probably split these up into a few videos because I did get a lot of questions. So let's start from the earliest ones. Okay, Caitlin Brooks asks, have Coco and Murphy met Reg? How did that go? So they have met. John has brought Reggie over to my apartment a few times now, and well, Coco doesn't really care, to be honest. He's my little old man. He's about 17, and he's pretty intimidating toward dogs. When we go to the vet, he yells if he has to sit in his carrier in the waiting room, but if I let him out of his carrier and just have him sit on my lap in the waiting room, then he's much happier, and he likes to stare at the dogs as they come in until they cower under the waiting room chairs in fear. He's such a sweet little guy, but yeah, he likes to pull out that he can be intimidating occasionally. Murphy and Reg are both pretty high energy creatures. So when they met, So first we had them on either side of a closed bedroom door just so that they could smell each other and get used to each other's scents. And then we had them on either side of a baby gate. And Murphy is so curious that he went right up to the baby gate, and he and Reggie were nose to nose on either side of it. And it was like a game of chicken to see who would break first. And eventually, hi Murph. He's so happy. He hasn't had a lot of snuggle time other than when I'm in bed this week. So he's very happy to have some mama time. So Murph hissed, Reg barked. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either. And it's been taking a little bit more for them to get to that point in recent visits, so that's good. That's progress. So yeah, we're just gonna try to keep getting them all into my apartment and having everybody get used to being around each other, and hopefully eventually they will get used to each other. Next question. Caledoniana asks, do you have any all-time favorite books? I have many all-time favorite books. As you may know, if you're a long-time watcher of the podcast, I was a children's librarian throughout my teen years. And I loved that job because I love children's books. I love books in general. So I would say that I have a few categories of favorite books. I have favorite children's books, favorite adult fiction, and favorite adult nonfiction. My favorite children's books include The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles by Julie Edwards, who is also Julie Andrews of Sound of Music, Princess Diaries, many other movies fame, and it's such an imaginative book. I absolutely love that book. I have a copy of it. The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster, which I talked about in my most recent podcast episode. The Alana series by Tamara Pierce will always have a special place in my heart because I read that as sort of a preteen who didn't really fit in, and it was great to read about another girl who didn't really fit in. That was really encouraging. What are my other favorite books? All right, adult fiction. Let's see. I'm currently, well, I don't know if I'd call that a favorite. I think Witches of New York by Amy McKay would be one of my favorite books, along with the prequel, which is The Virgin Cure, which is really interesting. It's historical fiction with a little dash of magic thrown in, which I always like. And then adult nonfiction. Oh, I forgot a children's fiction book that I love. It is, I can see it from here, The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funke. It's an amazing book. It takes place in Venice. Again, there's magic, and the characters are wonderful, and they're surprisingly complex for a children's book. I would definitely recommend that. If you have a child or you are looking for a book for a child between, I would say, 8 and 12, I would very much recommend that book, and definitely read it as an adult too, because it's great. As for adult nonfiction, going strictly by the number of times I've read it, I would have to say The Year of Living Danishly, which I'll put the author here because I forget who it is. But I'm very intrigued by life in Denmark and Norway and the Scandinavian countries in general, just in what a different set of values that culture seems to have as opposed to living in the United States, particularly in the New York area, where everything is very success focused and it's all about the hustle. People wear being busy or being tired or being stressed as like a badge of honor, which is not something that I feel particularly comfortable with. I don't really like that. So it's really interesting to me to read about cultures where that is not the case and to try to take what I can from that and incorporate it into my own life. Next question. What's your favorite? Oh, this is from Tanya. Hi, Tanya. What's your favorite holiday tradition besides putting up that gorgeous tree? Well, thank you very much. I do love my tree. It is beautiful, if I do say so myself. My favorite holiday traditions. Well, I'm just gonna move this plastic bag of mini skeins because Murphy's nudging it with his head. So I don't know if this is a favorite tradition because it is sad, but so when I was growing up, my dad used to take my brother and me to the diner in my hometown on the morning of Christmas Eve. We would go and have rice pudding or French onion soup and hot chocolate, and then we would walk around the park, and my dad would do, like, you know, the embarrassing dad thing of climbing up on a bench and reciting the first stanza of the poem The Village Smithy, or The Village Blacksmith, I think it's called, which is where the my colorway Under the Spreading Chestnut Tree, that's where that colorway comes from. That's the first line of that poem. And our dad passed away in 2011, and my brother and I changed the tradition slightly. We now go for lunch at the Chinese restaurant in town and then walk around the park, and then go over to the cemetery to spend a little time with our dad. And it makes me sad, but I'm also really glad that we are carrying on his memory in that way. Also, on a lighter note, the classic Italian Christmas Eve fish dinner. Next question. MV Knits asks, how many years have you been making the Advent set? This was the 3rd year when I offered Advent calendars, so 2020 will be the 4th year. What inspires you? I am largely inspired by nature. I think the most beautiful forms and the most beautiful colors and the most beautiful color combinations and plays of light and shadow and movement can all be found in nature. So that is definitely where I get the majority of my inspiration. I'm also very much inspired by books, particularly children's books, and music, especially very evocative songs. I love what I think of as story songs, where there's a story being told within the lyrics. Yeah, I think what I'm really inspired by is emotion. So when I'm thinking about a colorway that I want to create, I start by thinking about how I want the person looking at it to feel. And that's my starting point. So then I think, okay, what colors make me feel that way? or when I feel that way, if I close my eyes, what are the colors that kind of float into my mind? So that's very much where I get my inspiration. Sockwitchery says, coffee or tea? Of your preferred beverage, what's your favorite kind? Ooh, okay, so, sorry, there's horns outside. So, not too long ago, it would have been hands down tea. But I've started drinking coffee over the last year or so, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'll give you my favorite tea and my favorite coffee. My favorite tea is McNulty's Berry Cream Black Tea from McNulty's Coffee and Tea Shop in the city. And it's so delicious. It's a black tea with berry flavors. It's not too sweet. It's just a nice, subtle berry flavor. And my favorite coffee is the Ivory blend from Black and Brass Coffee, which is roasted in my hometown. Cozy Punk asks, top 3 songs that always make you feel like dancing. Okay. Starships and Super Bass by Nicki Minaj. Let's count them as one. Let's count that as one of my 3. Banging Camp by The Hold Steady. Particularly live. I don't go like to clubs or anything, but I do love live music. So if I can go see The Hold Steady and they play Banging Camp, I will be dancing my booty off. And what's a good third one? I can't think of a third one. I can't think of a third one. Most of the music that I listen to is a little bit more on the relaxed side. So I don't know how much of it makes me feel like dancing. A lot of it might make me feel like slowly twirling in a field with my arms out. Does that count? Let's say that counts. All right, next question. Transitory asks, how's your dinky dino? All right, so thanks, Candace. Calling me out on the dinky dino. So I decided to get a dinky dino virtual pet, which they were my favorite virtual pets from the 90s/early 2000s. And it was inspired by when Candace shared a photo of the new iPhones because they looked just like the dinky dino colors. And so I bought one on eBay, and it didn't come with batteries. So I have not yet bought batteries for it. I think because it's been like such a busy season with advent calendars and then working through the self-striping pre-orders and everything from the thank you sale. I think the thought of adding a little demanding cyber creature was just too much for me. So we'll see. Maybe I'll start it up over the holidays. We'll see. No promises. Barb and Knit says, what inspires you in every aspect, not just creatively? I feel like I pretty much covered that, but I will add music is definitely a big inspiration for me. Oh, I already talked about that. Whoops. I think people who are very authentic inspire me. I have people yelling outside. I hope you can't hear them. Urban life. DSLR battery ran out. So I think we're going to call it a night with the Q&A for this evening, and then I'll continue to answer a few questions every day in vlogmas. So now I am just settled in on the couch. I am working a little bit on my crochet blanket. I got a lot of work done today. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to relax and work on this blanket for a couple hours and then have a pretty early bedtime and get an early start tomorrow and keep moving along.